Hello folks, welcome again to Skywatch Media News. This is the final week of August 2017. With the solar eclipse now in the astronomical archives, many of our viewers who may not have personally witnessed the eclipse or whose viewing was hindered by adverse weather or cloud cover are anxious to discover if in fact Planet X would be seen during the Great American Eclipse of 2017. After careful examination and analysis of a multitude of images and videos taken both before and during the eclipse, there is sufficient evidence that strongly suggests the presence of a planetary body approaching the point of perihelion with the Sun. Now, it's taken a number of days to filter through the material that has been received from sources across the country. But for those who are familiar with these presentations, we are only interested in the facts here. And as you know from listening to my presentations, I tell it as it is. In case you're wondering, it takes several days and in some cases longer to produce a good video. Information has to be received, reviewed, analyzed, and documented so that it can be presented to our viewers in a manner that can be easily explained and understood. That is our objective, and that is how I present my material. One other note I would like to make before I present these findings. In my last video presentation, I discussed the exercise being conducted by FEMA. They called it the Black Sky Event, which is a preventative measure in the event of a long-term blackout, a failure of the national power grid as a result of an EMP or some type of space weather event or a cosmic influence. Now, some of you were under the impression that this exercise may in some way have been associated with the eclipse. That was never the intention of this announcement, nor was it ever implied that the two were somehow interconnected. So, as was expected, a number of our skeptics were quick to jump on the bandwagon of ridicule and chastisement immediately following the finale of the solar eclipse on August 21st. They were under the impression, after watching the eclipse coverage either on the major networks or personally viewing the eclipse with their special filtered glasses, that there was no evidence of a Planet X. Their anxiety quickly turned into jubilation because they thought that I and others had failed in our endeavors. So while they were busy ridiculing and denouncing the messengers, I and others were busy compiling visual evidence that corroborates our understanding of what is present in our solar system. So let's take a look at what we discovered and see if it meets the test of what we have said all along, that something is perturbing our solar system and affecting the equilibrium of the Earth. There is no denial. It is happening whether we accept its reality or whether we continue in its denial. We'll start out with a series of images taken during the eclipse, and these are from southeast Idaho, which places this particular group of images in the area of totality. The photographer used an eclipse filter material with the use of the special eclipse glasses with ISO settings of 1600 for those who may be familiar with camera settings. These first images are actual indications of what was visible during the solar eclipse on August 21st. If you look down in the lower right corner, you will see the presence of the object of interest. The circled area shown here was then super enhanced to show the presence of this incoming system. Coincidentally, on the same day of the eclipse in the United States, a live feed from Italy captured this presence, which also indicates its proximity to the Sun, where it is situated now slightly below the ecliptic. Now, A gentleman from Japan produced a couple of charts with some calculations, and this is really important for us to know. He has been able to pinpoint a precise location and distance in astronomical units, what we call AU. And this is for this object at the time of this ecliptic capture. Now, this is what I've been able to interpret from this. He has outlined the distance in terms of its location below the ecliptic line, which is the orbit of the Sun and all the planets. The large white arrow is pointing to the magnified enhancement of the object of interest. Now, he has taken these estimations and provided what he considers to be the precise location of planet X at the time of the eclipse on August 21st. Here's where it gets interesting, because according to his calculations, the system is now located some 340,000 kilometers to the right of the Sun and some 400,000 kilometers below the ecliptic line, which thus places it squarely in an area of concern, where it would be quickly rising to the ecliptic and approaching the point of perihelion with the Sun, which is its closest approach to the Sun before it begins to move outward in its approach towards the Earth. So this could very well explain why they are experiencing a tidal phenomenon in places such as South America and South Africa in the past couple of weeks. And I'll explain more on the unusual movement of the sea later in this presentation. So we are beginning to now see the gradual gravitational effects of this system on the Earth's equilibrium. We have more incredible eclipse images, and so let's take a look at them. These next images were taken from Anchorage, Alaska on the day of the eclipse, August 21st. You'll notice the massive object is seen here below and to the right of the Sun, just as we had shown in the images from Idaho. It's important to remember when you're viewing these particular images that the visibility of the incoming system was better observed from the southern hemisphere in previous months because it was still rising to the ecliptic and thus located below the Earth, where vision was primarily restricted to areas that are located south of the equator. Now that the system is moving closer to the ecliptic, its visibility has extended out, as we had expected it would, with the elongated orbital path of its movement. These next series of photos were captured from the Atlanta area in what was a partial eclipse from this region on August 21st. As the eclipse commences, between 2 and 3 p.m., the object of interest is seen to the lower right of the Sun, just as we saw in Idaho and Alaska hours earlier. A few hours after the eclipse, at around 6:30 p.m., the object is observed at the 5 o'clock position. For those interested in the camera settings and filter optimization, the information is provided for you here. As you observe the magnified frames of the captured image, it is now becoming more apparent, as time progresses, that we have entered into a binary star system, and its effects of its presence can be seen right here on planet Earth. This was videotaped from a network feed during the eclipse and was made available to us via our Facebook page. It looks like the logo to the right indicates that it is the Great American Eclipse. And as you can see, the massive presence is there on the live feed in the same location as all the others, to the lower right at about the 5 o'clock position. Another odd phenomena that was seen and recorded during this event involved the appearance of another object being eclipsed. As you can see in this video image from Panama City, Florida, taken by a photographer who has done some incredible Planet X investigative work. Here another object comes into view in the upper left-hand corner during the eclipse. The first indications upon viewing this was that this may have been a double exposure of the lens, but we're not so sure that this is actually what we saw. So listen to the description given in this video clip, and then I'm going to show you a series of images taken the following day on August 22nd, which I will explain on the other side of this clip.
Hi, the following clip you will see here right now, and I try to keep it as short as I can, is a clip based on a 40-minute clip I took, and also a 2-hour observation before the sun eclipse and a 1-hour observation after the sun eclipse. Everything what you see in here is not photoshopped. It is without used any color laser lens. I just used a telescopic lens. What you see in the sun in this clip is that the sun is getting entered by some kind of object, which might be as the moon, because you can see that the shape of the sun will change. The object what you see on the 10 o'clock position in this clip is this object I have monitored and recorded already many times before, and it seems like that this object during the whole time also get eclipsed from some kind of other object. 2017, it's right now 1:37, and around the sun we have some clouds right now, so the view is not totally open. Where it looks like something is entering the sun spot, because the shape of the sun is different. The other object I'm talking about is still to the 10 o'clock position and is still there. And this was filmed here in Panama City Beach, Florida. During my observation 2 hours before and 1 hour after the sun eclipse, I never could actually see the moon coming in and moving in front of the sun, which was kind of awkward. And I never could see the moon coming out of the sun. This part of my clip is already almost before I stopped the recording, where the clouds start moving away out of our view, and the other object what you see in the 10 o'clock position was still there. So it was not the moon eclipsing the sun. This is a different object. Here at this point the sky was almost clear. Around the sun there was no chemtrails and no clouds. Hey people, it is 1:57 here right now in Panama City Beach, Florida. The sky was just darkened up for about maybe 20 minutes, something like that, and then it started lighten up again.
Now, when a composite was done with the August 22nd posting shown here in the upper frame, with the video images during the eclipse shown here in the lower frames, you will notice a strikingly similar comparison. When we hone in on the object and do an analysis using clarity enhancement and color saturation, there does appear to be another object that is interacting with the sun, that is also being eclipsed, which then puts into question whether the object videotaped during the eclipse was a double reflection. So there appears to be something serious going on in our solar system. Now, I want to go back to the chart that was created by a gentleman named Koshima. He is from Kyoto Prefecture in Japan. And he has done some investigative work for a website that has been around since 2009. It's Earth Changes and the Pole Shifts. Some of you may be familiar with their work. Here is what has been determined according to astronomical calculations with respect to the observation of August 21st during the eclipse, which is outlined here in this chart. So follow along with me if you will. If we take the center spot on the Sun and extend the line down to where planet X has been located, that configuration would be a 1.04 astronomical units. We then take the distance from the extended center line to planet X, or where planet X has been photographed, and this comes out to be 0.84 astronomical units. The location of Venus has been determined to be 0.72 AU from the Sun. So we then take the distance between Earth and Venus, which is 0.28 AU, and from here we take the down distance from the center point of the Sun, which is the 1.04 astronomical units, and multiply that by the distance of Earth from Venus, which then gives us a fair equation which places planet X roughly 404,000 kilometers below the ecliptic plane. So then we take the diameter of the Sun, which is in this case 1,391,000 kilometers wide, and times that by the distance to the right of the Sun, in addition to the distance between Earth and Venus, which we said was 0.28 kilometers, and we arrive at 340,000 kilometers to the right of the Sun. This then is how an object, in this particular case, planet X, is located in a three-dimensional location in space. Now, it may seem a little complicated, but if in fact planet X is rising to the ecliptic, as the images now suggest, then these calculations would seem fairly accurate. What our friend from Japan has done with these images is he has taken the white circled area seen in the lower right, which is the location of Nibiru, and has enlarged it so that you can see here in these frames that there is in fact a system of planetary objects that are moving in an elongated orbit around our Sun as it continues to rise to the ecliptic, now almost to the point of perihelion, where its presence would place it well within the inner solar system and ever closer to the orbit of Earth. I have mentioned how as the system gets closer to us, that it will begin to have a profound effect upon the equilibrium of the Earth. In retrospect, what this means is that the climate will continue to worsen, whereby the Earth will begin experiencing a severe wobble and a tilting of the axis. As the magnetic influence of the incoming system interacts with the magnetic shield of the Earth, this causes an influx of cosmic energy to flow inward, which then influences the tidal movement of the oceans along the Atlantic Ridge as well as the Pacific Basin. We began seeing the effects of this some 2 weeks ago with the historical receding of the waters along the Atlantic coast of South America in Brazil and Uruguay, while at the same time the Pacific waves were crashing ashore in Chile and along the western edge of South America. This is what we are experiencing right now. As the weather worsens, we begin seeing more unprecedented weather events, just like what we are witnessing now, with the historic and catastrophic flooding of Texas as a result of Tropical Storm Harvey, which came ashore on the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 hurricane. This is flooding of a biblical nature, which continues to worsen as the days go by. The sign of the sun and the moon are being revealed just as was predicted many years ago would come to pass. As we have indicated, the great changes happening in the solar system and the presence of Planet X as it moves ever closer to perihelion are having a profound effect upon the Earth. Even so, the moon's orbit may seem erratic, as the Earth's tilt becomes more apparent and the severe wobble takes place. If you were to take pictures of the moon on an hourly basis, you will see from these images that the face is rotating 15 degrees an hour. If you take the Sea of Crisis as a reference point, shown here at the 1 o'clock position, you will then see it rotates to the 5 o'clock position. In reality, it is not the moon that is moving, but rather the Earth as a result of an ever-increasing wobble. The proof is in the details. Sunspots move across the surface of the sun in a linear fashion from left to right in a matter of days. The sunspots from an arc, a semicircle moving 15 degrees an hour, is the same rate at which the Earth moves in its rotation, whereby 15 degrees times 24 hours gives you 360 degrees. So hopefully the information provided in this presentation will provide a guideline for you in your observations. The signs that we see today with the moon, the Earth, and in our solar system are an indication that the great changes are now taking place. If you take the time to look, you will know that this is true. In 2005, when the catastrophic Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, the National Weather Service informed the public that this storm was a rare event, one of those storms that only comes around every 100 years or so. When the Great Flood of 2016 devastated a good portion of south-central Louisiana, they again told us that this was an event that only happens once in a century. They said the same when the banks of the Mississippi overflowed in the spring of 2017, devastating many communities in its wake. And now, while Houston and the surrounding communities suffer the same fate, the authorities are confused, wondering how this could have happened to the fourth largest city in the nation. People have a tendency to forget the great events that have taken place in our recent past. They believe that a similar fate will not happen to them, and so they do not prepare until it is too late. So, my friends, keep a vigilant eye on your surroundings. Follow your instincts when these great events come your way. Look for the signs here on earth and in the heavens. and keep looking to the sky.